It's never the monsters who scare you that change you. It's the ones who smile when they do it. The ones who say the right words, soft, familiar, comforting, until you realize they weren't words at all. They were commands disguised as care. And by the time you understand what they meant, you've already handed them your mind. You've probably told yourself you'd see manipulation coming, that you'd notice the red flags, the shouting, the guilt trips, the control. But what if manipulation doesn't sound cruel at all? What if it sounds reasonable, even kind? The truth is, most manipulators don't raise their voice. They speak softly. They build control not through fear, but through confusion, through doubt. And they don't take your freedom by force. They make you give it away. You've heard these phrases before from friends, partners, maybe even family, and each time you felt something small inside you twist. You couldn't quite explain it, but something about the words didn't match the feeling in your chest. That's the subtle signature of manipulation when language stops describing reality and starts rewriting it. 1. You're overreacting. It sounds harmless, a phrase meant to calm things down. But listen closely. It doesn't calm you, it silences you. When someone says you're overreacting, they're not responding to your pain. They're redefining it. They're telling you that your emotional reality, your instinct, your perception is wrong. It's a quiet rewriting of truth, designed to make you second-guess yourself. At first, you defend yourself. I'm not overreacting. But that's the trap, because the moment you argue, you've already accepted their frame. Now the debate isn't about what happened, it's about whether your emotions are valid. Psychologically, this is called gaslighting. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes, it's subtle erosion. Each time you're told you're too emotional, you trust your instincts a little less. Until one day, you stop reacting at all, not because you've healed, but because you've been trained not to feel. And that's exactly how control begins, not by chaining your body, but by teaching your mind to doubt its own fire. 2. If you really loved me, it always starts with love. The sweetest word turned into the sharpest weapon. When someone says if you really loved me, what they're really saying is, your love must be proven through obedience. This phrase hooks into your deepest instinct, the desire to belong, to be good, to be loved in return. It turns affection into a test, and you into a performer. Suddenly, love isn't a connection, it's a bargain. This is called emotional blackmail. It operates through guilt and fear, the fear of losing affection, and it works because love is the easiest emotion to exploit. When you love someone, your mind creates blind spots. You rationalize, you excuse. You tell yourself it's just how relationships work. But love should never be something you prove through sacrifice or submission. Because the moment it becomes conditional, it stops being love and turns into control disguised as care. The manipulator knows this. They weaponize your empathy, because the more you care, the easier you are to control. They don't need chains, they just need your need. 3. I was only joking. A phrase that hides cruelty behind a smile. It usually comes after a jab, a subtle insult, a dig at your character, your insecurities, your pain. You freeze, unsure how to respond. Then they laugh and say, relax, I was just joking. And suddenly you're the one who's too serious. But deep down, you know it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a test, a probe, a way to see what they could get away with. This is manipulation through plausible deniability. It allows someone to say something hurtful, and if you react, you become the problem. It's a perfect psychological trick, one that hides malice inside humor. This behavior is rooted in dominance, testing a subconscious attempt to assert control by seeing how far boundaries can be pushed. If you laugh it off, the boundary moves. If you object, they mock your sensitivity. Either way, they win because the focus shifts from their cruelty to your reaction. The most dangerous manipulators hide behind charm. They make cruelty look like charisma, and the world calls them funny. For, you made me do this. This one sounds angry. It's the phrase of a storm. You made me do this is the manipulator's absolution, their way of turning their own behavior into your fault. It's one of the purest forms of projection, transferring guilt from the abuser to the abused. When someone says this, they're rewriting cause and effect. They're saying, my actions are a reaction to you. It removes accountability. Now, your pain becomes their excuse. This works because the human mind hates conflict, especially when it involves blame. We'd rather believe we caused the problem than face the truth that someone chose to hurt us. So you start apologizing. Not for what you did, but for what they felt. And just like that, their emotions become your responsibility. This phrase is common among narcissists and coercive personalities, those who can't tolerate shame. In their world, they're never wrong. They just react to others' mistakes. And so, the cycle continues. Every wound you suffer somehow becomes your own fault. But remember, no one can make someone else cruel. They can only reveal what was already inside them. 5. You're too sensitive. It sounds like advice. It's actually a cage. You're too sensitive is how manipulators teach you to censor yourself. It's not about your emotions, it's about control over the narrative. Here's what it really means. Your feelings inconvenience me. Stop having them. Sensitivity isn't weakness, it's awareness. It's the ability to feel what others ignore. But when someone calls you too sensitive, they're punishing that awareness. They're telling you that your ability to perceive harm is the problem. Over time, this creates emotional conditioning. You start pre-editing yourself, toning down your reactions, your truth, your boundaries, just to avoid being labeled too much. And in that silence, you lose pieces of yourself. Manipulators rely on this, because the less you express, the easier you are to mold. And they don't want you calm, they want you quiet. But here's the truth. Sensitivity isn't the enemy. Indifference is. And people who shame your feelings are usually the ones who fear their own. 6. I'm only saying this because I care. This one is subtle. It sounds loving, almost noble. But beneath the surface, it's a psychological disguise. I'm only saying this because I care is often used to deliver criticism that cuts deep comments about your appearance, your choices, your life. And because it's framed as caring, you can't challenge it without sounding ungrateful. This is manipulation through moral authority. By claiming good intentions, they shield themselves from accountability. They get to say whatever they want, and you're expected to receive it as wisdom. The trick here is that your brain interprets care as safety, so you lower your guard. You let their words sink in deeper than you should. And soon, you find yourself changing not because you want to, but because you don't want to disappoint them. That's the hidden genius of this phrase. It manipulates through virtue. Because if someone claims to care, they must be right? But real care doesn't disguise harm as help. It doesn't wound to teach. It respects autonomy. It doesn't rewrite it. Reflection, the language of control, you see. Manipulation rarely begins with lies. It begins with tone, with the small moments when someone convinces you to question your own reflection. It's not always loud. Sometimes it sounds like love, sometimes it sounds like reason. But it always feels the same, like something inside you shrinking, bending, breaking, just enough to keep the peace. The true power of manipulation isn't in the words themselves. It's in how they reshape reality, how they train your mind to surrender one truth at a time, until your silence feels like safety, and their control feels like care. But once you see it, once you name it, it loses its power. Because awareness is the one thing manipulation can't survive. It feeds on confusion. It dies in clarity.